We're in Monasterio de Rodilla in Burgos in Spain, and there's this really incredible Romanesque church that I want to show you. Let's go through it and take a look at all these details, starting with the portal here. You can see that this is a Romanesque church. It's really one of the most incredible examples in this province. It's very well preserved, it's very original, and there are so many different details to look at. First, we can start with this woman on the left. Who might she have been? It might have been the person who was the patron of this church. You can see that she has this really elaborate headgear on her head, marking her out as a noble woman. Of course, every single piece, just like every other Romanesque church that we see, is absolutely unique. The attention to detail on these churches was absolutely incredible. Let's come up closer and take a look at these capitals. This style, which we see weaving in and out of itself, comes from late antique times and gets used all throughout the Middle Ages. Much in the late Roman art that we see, and the Visigothic art. Islamic art picks up on it as well. But here at this church, it really manifests itself. Complete detail. Take a look at all of these mythical animals that are headbutting each other, almost as if they're in a conflict or in some sort of fight. And these amazing monstrous heads that stick out on both sides, kind of looking out at the viewer when they're walking into the church. If we come up top here, there's even more of these capitals. We see some sort of animal like a donkey or a horse. We see this eagle looking back behind its own head. There's a harpy with a human face, and the detail that goes along the roof on the side. Well, let's keep going. You can see that they put this arch for detail all throughout the side of the church, both at the end where the altar is, but also on this side. This tower we see on the right really reminds me of Romista. It's super common to see this in Romanesque Spanish churches. And it's actually a way that the person could get up into the bell tower with stairs. But there's something fascinating on the inside of the church that didn't necessitate them to go up that tower, and I'm going to show that to you later. Wrapping around the side here, take a look again at these amazing faces. There's a barrel, someone's holding a barrel. More animals. But what really calls my attention here is this eagle that we see without a head. It lost it. There have been recent studies that have said that this was the eagle which the Umayyads had used during their raids into the north, which we would have called razzias. There's also some fish there, by the way. But what's really important about these eagles is that they became a symbol of power for the Christians, because it is thought that on the banners or the flags of Abd al-Rahman III and of al-Mansur, they carried that eagle, and it made its way into the Christian vocabulary of power. And on the inside of the church too, there's a really unique case of this eagle, but it has a human face. I'll put down a screen a picture of al-Mansur's washing station for prayer from Medina al-Zahira. It is really interesting to see that throughout the cultures, whether it's the Visigoths as well, that use these eagles, we see a continuance of that artistic pattern because of the incredible meaning that it could have. An eagle is obviously something that goes out and hunts for its prey, it attacks. And sometimes you even see them holding their prey in their mouth. Or not in their mouth, I mean in their feet, grabbing it. And it becomes a way for nobles or kings to say, don't try to rebel against me. I am the eagle and you are the prey. You will not succeed. let's head down here and let's go back inside of the church after we get a glimpse of this facade. You can see that before there used to be a house here. It used to be connected to the church. This is not an original door. It's something that used to connect to the house, which, I mean, take a look at this stone that's on the ground. That would have made up part of the foundation for this. Let's go back around and let's actually enter into the church. Okay, let's get in front of it and have a grand entrance through the portal. Now the inside might be one of the most fascinating parts because there's so many colors inside of this church that stay. For example, this window right here alternates between white, red, white, red, white, red. What does that remind us of? Obviously, it reminds us of the Mosque of Cordoba and the language that the Umayyads used, but also it goes back until late antique times with the Romans. You can see it in the Babylon fortress, which is now in modern-day Cairo, Egypt, which was the fortress of the Byzantines. All of this language gets reused here. There's always continuance in art. Something else that really can draw your attention is what I mentioned earlier. This is the same style eagle, but it has a human face. It's almost like it's a harpy, but instead it's an eagle. Also right here, this capital is extremely interesting because it conserves 3 different colors. We see green on the leaves, blue behind the leaves, and those 2 birds, which seem to me to be like the idea of what the pelican is for Thomas Aquinas or many other Christian thinkers, where the pelican will bite itself, cause itself to bleed, and then give its blood to its children so that their children can survive and have nutrients. Why would Christians use something like that? Well, that's the idea of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Christ sacrificed himself on the cross, bled and died and offered his blood and body to the Father so that the Christians can have eternal life and live forever, just as the pelican harms itself so that its children can survive. Speaking more of colors, there's this beautiful green and red that marks this checkered pattern. And of course on this column, you can see how blue it used to be. At the top, you see the red as well. And as you go down, it switches colors. This apse is incredible, isn't it? But look at this incredible dome. What does that remind us of? Well, what comes first to my mind is the Pantheon of Rome, where there's an open space at the top. What served this function? Do you see on the bottom and the top that there is erosion from friction? What we think this could be is that there was a rope that extended its way down from there to the wall, which would have been pulled by one of the monks to ring the bells. That way they didn't have to go up the stairs. You can see how it is perfectly made, this kind of hole where the rope would have been. This is, without a doubt, posterior, but you can see an attempt at creating this late antique style of vaulting that we could see in like the Basilica of Constantine in Rome, or many of the Asturian churches in the north of Spain. This place is riddled and just covered in late antique artistic vocabulary. Whether it's these interlacing lines, what we see there, or even from ancient times where we could see something imitating something like the Pantheon in Rome. Now, Here's the apse. This is where the Mass would have been offered. Yet again, we can see the alternating colors of red to white to red to white to red. It's just incredible that these colors have been preserved all throughout this church, so we can still appreciate what it might have looked like to medieval people. Because things were not just white. I mean, time causes the colors to fade. Here's a statue of the Virgin. And something extremely interesting is under this altar. So let's pull up the cloth and the plastic and take a look at what this is. So the first Christians, to give you context for history, those, say, around Rome, would go out to the cemeteries and they would worship and sacrifice the Mass. They would have Mass and their prayer service on top of the graves of martyrs. That's because the martyrs were the most holiest, they were the holiest of peoples. And so doing it there had a sense of it being extremely special. But obviously, places that are so rural don't always have martyrs. So what do? You bring the bones of the saints and you put them inside of the altar. So there would have been relics inside of this altar where they would have sacrificed the Eucharist and offered it to God for the remission of sins. But obviously here it would have been able to put the bones inside of them so that this altar could be, in effect, a sort of grave of a martyr or of a very important, of a saint. You can see maybe that would have been a way to open it up. Let's put this carefully back down. It's hard to do with one hand. Well, there we have it. I hope that you enjoyed this tour because we had a very special opportunity to open up this church today, thanks to those who live here. It's not every day that somebody gets to come into something so special like this and be able to share this incredible piece of architecture. Normally we only get to see from outside, but thanks to our own luck, we were able to see the inside. There they are, the people who have let us in. Thank you so much to them, and I hope you enjoyed the video.